Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 5 of the AROC Racing League's Formula Alpha Championship for 2025. Cannot believe it. Round 5 already halfway, in fact, over halfway into the season now. We're a bit more than over halfway into this qualifying session as well. Apologies for the late start to proceedings. Of course, the session has been running nice and smoothly all in the background, but there have been a couple of technical issues on my side, which have prevented me from joining up until now. But I am pleased to report, as a result of me fixing these technical issues, we've got some lovely visual upgrades to the stream as well. So as you can see, things looking rather pretty on camera at the moment. The camera angle seems to be quite far away here at Losail, but other than that, they're looking rather good. Hopefully that continues throughout the rest of the tracks for this season. Just over a minute to go then in qualifying, so it is certainly a quick one. As we head towards the end of the first session of the evening, it is Andrew Whitehead who lead, a 1:55.044. These are the only two competitive times pretty much. It's Andrew Whitehead and Willing Bliss. Can Andrew improve upon that time? He does, but it's an illegal lap. Unfortunately, at the very end of the circuit, he runs wide and is penalised as a result. That lap will not count. That 1:54.497 that he set will not carry him forward into the race. However, that 1:55 he previously set is still fastest lap out on track for the moment. Following on from him, Willing Bliss, 1:56.617. He's on for a quick lap at the moment, but unfortunately, that has also been found to fall foul of track limits. So it's going to be an interesting race this evening. Not something we see all that often. Track limits going to be the name of the game here. It's a bit of a common Tilkedrome trait, really, isn't it? Herman Tilke, obviously infamous circuit designer in Formula 1. This is another one of his masterpieces, so to speak. And yeah, they are often the case where drivers will fall foul of track limits at such circuits, and that seems to be the case so far in this qualifying session. Jack Hodson, Paul Millman, and, well, Reeve Taylor doesn't really count, but Paul Millman, Andrew Brammer, and Jack Hodson, in fact, so far not setting competitive times. In the case of Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer, that is all that they can do in this session. They won't be able to push on any further, and that will be track limits violation for Willing Bliss as well. We're on board for that one as we've run through the mid part of the lap, heading through turn 6 here now. Unfortunately for Willing Bliss, that is going to invalidate this lap. So what drivers do we have coming across the line next? We do have Jack Hodson running on the soft tyre. See a couple of drivers on the medium, giving that a go at least, as we head back down the long, very long straight for these cars. Matt Daly has not set a time, but Jack Hodson certainly has. A 1:57.8 sees him third fastest in this session. Now that is 3 seconds off the pace of Andrew Whitehead, but that still has your P3 because it's all down to track limits in this session so far. Up next, then, we will have Andrew Whitehead. Can he improve as he comes across the line? It's a 1:55.0 to beat. I think he's run out of fuel or stopped because he's decided there's nothing else that he can do. Oh no, it was an invalid lap time at the end for Andrew Whitehead as well. That leaves only Matt Daly to go out on track. But it looks to be an out lap on the first part of this lap, so I'll be intrigued to see if he is able to push on and post that final lap in this session. No one else is able to. That is looking like the qualifying order settled, unless by some miracle he is able to start a fast lap, and that is going to be track limits if ever I've seen it for Matt Daly. Really testing the downforce of these cars to the absolute limit is this circuit. You haven't got any cambers to help you really, and it's fairly high speed, even though that compared to just how long the track is, these cars don't have the utmost in terms of power. So Matt Daly now heading down that final start-finish straight now. He'll be coming across the line in a moment, and he is, by the looks of things, able to start the next lap of this session. This will be his one and only attempt in qualifying to try and push up. Now, he just needs to cruise around effectively. This is a very interesting dynamic in this session now. He doesn't need to push on at all. All he needs to do is beat the 2-minute 44.4, and he'll find himself on the second row of the grid. So if he just stays within those two white tram lines on either side of the circuit, which should be fairly easy to do as long as he keeps the nose clean, he should be rewarded. That was fairly borderline, though, as we head up through turn 4 and turn 5 in just a moment. Let's see what he can do as we come towards the end of sector 1 then. We see Matt Daly trying to push on for at least P4. Doesn't want to try and push too much, though, because, as I say, he'll end up P6, which, you know, still only third row on the grid. It's not the worst position to be in. So far for Matt Daly, it is looking like he's going to be matching Jack Hodson through this first sector. We've got no predicted lap times because we just don't have enough data from Matt Daly in this session so far, but we head through sector 2, now turn 8 and turn 9. Turn 10, actually a little bit deceptive, is turn 10. the mid-sectors in so many of these Middle Eastern Tilkedrome circuits can look quite simple, but when you're out there, it's a bit nasty. It's a bit harsh on the tyres. It really exercises all the downforce available in the cars, and the cars just often aren't that pleasurable to drive, if I'm brutally honest. So let's see how these drivers negotiate. Our skilled drivers, of course, how they negotiate this final part of the lap. It's a personal best, of course, for Matt Daly through that second sector as well. Not quite matching Andrew Whitehead. Does he push out too wide? We'll have to see. There might just be the case where track limits are not quite being recorded at that part of the lap, and the drivers might be aware of it. But he needs to be very careful indeed. He needs to make sure he does get a good lap time on the board, and I think he fell foul of track limits there because he jumped straight into the pits. Does Matt Daly. What a shame that is going to be it for qualifying. We'll catch you in a few moments, ready for race 1 on the grid. Well, here we are then on the grid, ready for race 1. Just under 30 seconds to go now. Here's our starting order. Whittling through, we're with Andrew Brammer at the moment, but we're going to jump on board with Andrew Whitehead here. Front row, Andrew Whitehead, Will Inglis, Jack Hodson, Paul Millman, Andrew Brammer and Matt Daly. Our 6-car grid for the evening's racing. Let's see how things go. Drivers then getting ready for that long run down to the first corner. If you're in a Formula 1 car, it's a bit shorter, but we've got a lot of time to think about it here, as we have got 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for race 1. It is an electric start there for Matt Daly. Has that potentially caught him out a little bit? Is that going to be a jump start? I'm not sure. It was very good indeed if it wasn't. Either way, it's going to be 3 wide. Will Inglis, Jack Hodson and Andrew Whitehead heading into that first corner, all battling for P2. It's Will Inglis who wins out though. Jack Hodson on the nose there with Andrew Whitehead. Andrew takes the inside line here. Matt Daly sit out in front by a decent margin, although very much under pressure now from Will Inglis. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead finds an opportunity to hang it around the outside of Jack Hodson, taking back that P3. Let's see what else is going on in the field then. It is going to be Will Inglis side by side with Matt Daly pushing on into turn 4. Sees an opportunity. The door opens on the inside liner and it's into first place for Will Inglis. And that is a very important overtake as well, because Will Inglis is on that hard compounder tyre. So if he can get a nose out in front, keep an advantage early on, and then later on into the race have a tyre advantage as well, he's going to set himself up very nicely indeed. Our medium tyre runners really want to be pushing on now, exercising the extra grip that those tyres have in order to try and push on further into the race, and then when they lose out a little bit of time relative to the hard runners, it's not too bad because they've built up a nice margin and set themselves up the best they can early on in the race while they have that medium tyre advantage. Either way, Will Inglis still leads from Matt Daly. Matt Daly leading from Jack Hodson and then Andrew Whitehead, although Andrew Whitehead is doing his damnedest to try and keep Jack Hodson behind and off that podium. Going to head through turn 14 in just a moment. Washing out a bit wide was a glimpse of Matt Daly there as we push back down towards the end of the lap now. It seems like such a long lap from from outside of the car, but when you're in racing conditions, it absolutely flies past. One thing that these high-speed circuits do offer, it's a lot of energy on track. It's a lot to think about for the drivers and a lot for the cars to do, really, even at such high speeds. These tracks are often great qualifying specials, but not great in the racing. And there we have confirmation that Matt Daly did have a jump start. He had to fight for it as best he could while he was out there, because he doesn't want to lose any time at all, really, because he's got it all to make up for now as he dives into those pits. Matt Daly's going to have his work out for him as he serves that penalty for a jump start. Either way, back at the top end of the field, Willing List still leads. Jack Hodson is able to get back in front of Andrew Whitehead, but of course this is for P2 now. It's all the more important. And we head up back towards turn 4 once again. Jack Hodson on the defence then as he tries to keep Andrew Whitehead at bay. Andrew's having a look around the outside there. On the hard compounder tyre as well is Andrew. And he's just washing out that little bit wide there. He didn't absolutely nail the line, and that is what is so punishing about so many of the circuits similar to this one, is that one slight mishap, one slight misjudgment of a line or a braking zone, and you're going to find yourself off into the runoff zone. Now, thankfully, the runoff zone is catastrophically large. There's just miles and miles and miles of tarmac for you to place the car in as you so need, but it is unfortunate. Speaking of unfortunate, as the back end stepping out on Willing Liss's car there. Not entirely sure what happened. The camera was so far away, but Willing Liss, after leading this race for a good lap or so now, finds himself down in P5 and is soon going to have Matt Daly for company. And this just goes to show how these races can often be races of attrition, because now we see the battle for P3, P4 is now the battle for the lead of the race. It's Jack Hodson leading from Andrew Whitehead, who leads from Paul Millman. Paul Millman running very nicely indeed on the podium on our races. Oh no, there goes Andrew Whitehead as well. The back end stepping out on him. I don't think there was any contact between any drivers there. That was just lost at the back end, I believe. Either way, that is very unfortunate indeed for Andrew Whitehead. Qualified so well, of course. Was the only driver to really post a competitive time in all the 25 minutes running of qualifying, and now finds himself plumb last. That is disaster for Andrew Whitehead. We're going to get to see a great battle between Matt Daly and Andrew Whitehead, I suspect, but just not quite for the positions I think we were expecting. As now, it is a Jack Hodson, Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer battle for the podium here. Who would have thought that if you'd looked at the qualifying results? Just goes to show us in the middle of saying, actually, it's a race of attrition. These drivers might not have posted the fastest times in qualifying, or in some cases not even been able to post a competitive time in qualifying, but now find themselves at the top end of this race. When some of our most competitive and some of our fastest drivers out there are actually got their work cut out for them, got a bit of reverse grid race already. Further down the order, this is great stuff from our drivers then currently running in the podium, as we're going to be on for a great race here as well, because already we've got the likes of Willing Liss, Matt Daly and Andrew Whitehead posting purple sectors, having just come back onto the track, but they're down in P4, P5, P6. So I'm not going to say there's going to be a swap over in the order, of course, but what I am saying is we're going to have a good battle on our hands at some point, folks. So this is going to be a good race to watch, I suspect. Didn't realise just how many lights there are here at Losail. Of course, Losail is most often used at night because in the day you can't really drive here. We've got ideal weather conditions on, so it won't be matching the 40-degree heights that we'd usually see out in the real world, and of course that means 50-odd degree tarmac temperatures, which just makes the cars undrivable, especially if you're a real-life driver, when you've got to deal with cockpit heat as well. Usually, this circuit is used at night. So that's the need for all of the lights here, which are currently turned off at the moment. Either way, Jack Hodson leads this race by a fairly comfortable margin. Now he can't completely rest on his laurels just yet, but all of our medium tyre runners are out in front, which is exactly how they'd want it to go, I am sure. Willing Liss gets ahead of Matt Daly, which ruins that pattern, so thank you, Will, but congratulations on P4. And Jack Hodson heads now into turn 16 with a 3-second gap to the car behind him. That is Paul Millman, who's running very nicely indeed in the podium positions at the moment, and that's 1.5 seconds ahead of Andrew Brammer as well. Now that 1.5 second gap means that he might benefit from a little bit of a slipstream. These cars are not the most powerful in the world, they don't get to the highest speeds in the world, and they don't have the most complicated aerodynamics in the world. What that means is that there isn't all that much to play with in terms of downforce, drag and the slipstream. So there isn't too much an effect, but there certainly is a notable one. It's not as notable as in the likes of Formula 1, but it certainly is there. And on a long back straight like this one here at Losail, particularly when we're hitting those dizzying high speeds, you will notice a bit of effect. It can make a difference, and it can be a big benefit as you're heading into that overtaking zone into turn 1 rather. So it'll be interesting to see how the drivers negotiate, making use of that slipstream as and when they can. Andrew Brammer getting closer and closer to Paul Millman on this lap. On the past lap, he had a couple of personal best sectors, and so far on this lap, he is 0.3 up on Paul Millman. Meanwhile, our drivers in P4, P5, P6 are smashing in those purple sectors. And here we see is Andrew Brammer having a look at the inside, then the line a little bit wide for Paul Millman. The door opens up and they are pretty much side by side. Andrew Brammer backs out of it for now, but I suspect is going to put on a bit of pressure here as we head down through turn 8 and turn 9. Coming towards the end of Sector 2 then. Big door open opportunity for Andrew Brammer. He says thank you very much, goes late on the brakes, if he even used any brakes. It seems to be he just dived his way through. That is Andrew Brammer then up into P2. There's going to be a great battle now because Paul Millman has a bit of a response here, I think, as he heads through turn 13 and turn 14. Having a look up the inside there. Pushing on, keeping that pressure on as we head towards the end of the lap. Now turn 15, a very aggressive left-hand kink for the drivers on this clockwise layout. It's getting a little bit confusing because all my track notes are, I do kind of north-south, if that makes sense. So at the bottom of the diagram is the start-finish line, and then you kind of head around in clockwise direction, which is still the same, but it's often inverted on the timing system that we have, so it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. Either way, Andrew Brammer clear of Paul Millman now, and there is Will Inglis working his way through as well, utilising that split stream. As we go side by side heading into that first corner, we get a look at the infield, but as we head through, we're not going to be quite 3 wide yet, maybe 2 wide ever so slightly. But the more that these three battle, the more we're going to see Matt Daly putting that pressure on as well. These are going to be slowing each other down. With all this battling, it makes for great viewing, but these drivers really need to think about the force that is Matt Daly approaching them from behind. It's purple sector through the previous lap in Sector 1 for Matt Daly, losing out a bit through Sector 2, and then a personal best through Sector 3 as well. On that last lap, in fact, Matt Daly sets the fastest lap of the race, and the back end goes loose for Will Inglis there. Just as he was making good progress, there was a tiny bit of contact between Andrew Brammer and Will Inglis, and there we see Will Inglis tumbling down to P6. Matt Daly's back down to P5. That promotes Andrew Whitehead into P4. Andrew Brammer unaffected there, but a very unfortunate incident for Will Inglis. What a shame that his race not quite shaping up the way that he'd want to be. He can use those hard tyres to go quite long into the race without having to worry too much about tyre degradation, but that's not ideal at this phase. Meanwhile, all this battling has resulted in a nice, healthy 8-second lead for Jack Hodson out in front there, so he can be quite pleased with that one, given it was a little bit topsy-turvy at the start of this race. And all of the work is to be done for P2 at the moment. As is so often the case, this battle for the podium is just providing some brilliant action as we head down through that fast left-handed kick once again towards what would usually be a DRS detection zone in the world of Formula 1. No DRS to be playing with on these cars, though, not even some passive double DRS, as is often the case on some certain Formula 1 cars these days, although I'm sure they're all at it. And we head back on to the start-finish straight now. Andrew Brammer is leading the charge down here with Paul Millman and Andrew Whitehead in quick succession. I think we're going to see a battle between Andrew Whitehead and Paul Millman before we see Paul Millman trying anything against Andrew Whitehead. So let's see what Andrew is able to do. You can see the LEDs on the steering wheel flashing as the car gets to the top of 6th gear. That 1.4 multi-air engine, if those of you with Giuliettas or Mitos will well know, it's a very versatile, very powerful, very punchy engine indeed, but it isn't quite the happiest to rev out. Now, there are companies like Multi-Air Tuning Developments, etc., who will make them with cams and various other components, make them rev out brilliantly. They can scream to 8,000 and they make all the power up there. But in most of the road trims that us Alfa fanatics will be familiar with, they just haven't quite got that upper end in terms of the power. So when Andrew is redlining it there, pretty much he's giving it everything it has got. He's pushing that car to the max in terms of what he's set up on the gearing, in terms of what he can do in terms of top speed as well. So this track really exercising these cars and their engines. Andrew Whitehead up into P3 then, and now has his sights set on Andrew Brammer up in front, only 0.7 of a second separating these drivers. This is the battle for the Andrews then, as we head through turn 10 and turn 11. It's effectively the front end of this pack in the race. We've got Will Inglis who's making headways back towards Matt Daly, and then the drivers from P2 to P6 separated by 5 seconds. Meanwhile, Jack Hodson has that comfortable lead out in front, and I should add, is going faster and faster. He's on the medium tyre, so he might want to think about just looking after the compound of those tyres, making sure they've got plenty of tread and life left in them so that there's still enough carcass, that they don't overheat, they don't lose grip. But he's very comfortable at the moment. If he is able to do that while also looking after his tyres, he's just at 157.3, getting faster still. Building that gap is exactly what he needs to do. Meanwhile, we are seeing Andrew Whitehead and Andrew Brammer side by side then as we head back onto that start-finish straight. No use of slipstream here. It's all too close. And for a brief moment, Andrew Whitehead gets a nose out in front. Andrew Brammer's going to have that inside line now, and I think he knows it as we see him getting ready to jump onto the defence here. We're going to jump on board with Matt Daly, though, as we see the inside is open for Andrew Brammer, but nicely executed that corner there by Whitehead as he goes on the defensive line and just parking the car in the middle of the circuit. So there is a gap where Brammer could squeeze through if he so wished, but it would have been a brave pill to swallow in order to do that, so he did back out of it in the end. That is exactly what Andrew Whitehead needed to do to keep Brammer at bay. Meanwhile, Will Inglis is having a look here at Paul Millman. Paul Millman, of course, in second just a couple of laps ago, now finds himself in P5, potentially in P6, based on how this battle goes for him here. This is a great little race. What a great little race this is shaping up to be as we head through turn 6 now. Still, this... I was about to try and come up with the word, but I'm just going to say 5-car battle then, being led by Andrew Whitehead. Will Inglis running in P5 at the moment, ahead of Paul Millman. What can Will Inglis do to keep Paul at bay? I think he might have it sorted for now if he can sort out that small issue he's having at the back end of the car that was causing him to spin out. If he makes sure he can keep that at bay, that will be fine. Meanwhile, Andrew Brammer is probably not all that focused anymore on Andrew Whitehead. Instead, here is the Yellow Devil, Matt Daly, heading through turn 12, sorry, not quite turn 13 just yet. Now it's turn 13, and having a look around the outside, here's Matt Daly, has to back out of it now, runs through, bound towards the bottom end of the circuit. Defending the inside then is Andrew Brammer, a very wide line there for Whitehead. I don't think you quite got away with that one, Andrew. We did catch it just, but we'll let you off on that one. As I've now apparently declared myself steward. Something a commentator should never do, but I've done it anyway. And we'll let you off on that occasion. Not sure if the timing system will be so generous, but I will. Meanwhile, Matt Daly on the defensive here, side by side with Brammer here, running down towards the first corner. Andrew just about gets a nose out in front, and that could suggest a better run through the final corner. Could also mean a difference in setup, lower drag, less downforce, maybe difference in gearing as well. Either way, on the brakes, Matt Daly gets it back into the first corner of the next lap, and it's Matt Daly back up into P3. A great recovery for Matt there. A great recovery as well for Andrew Whitehead. A set. Oh dear, that is a big off for Andrew Brammer there as he runs through the exit of the second corner, running into that third corner. The back end kicks out and he is frustrated. Unfortunately for Andrew Brammer, that is a retirement from the session. What a shame. He was driving so well, embroiled in so many fantastic battles. Unfortunately, one small error spells the end of Andrew Brammer's race. What a shame there. So 5 remain now, as Andrew Whitehead has been rather gifted with this little battle that Matt Daly and Andrew Brammer were having, because that slowed Matt Daly down just ever so slightly, and Andrew's been able to bash in at those purple sectors. So now he's about 3 seconds clear of Matt Daly, and perhaps more importantly, as we head into the final 10 minutes of this race, benefits from a hard compound tyre as well. So as we head into the next few laps, we're going to see the pace staying relatively strong for Andrew Whitehead as the tyres are still looking good. And when the drivers are jumping onto a harder tyre, that's usually when you know that actually this track is going to be pushing those tyres fairly well. We even saw it in qualifying, a couple of drivers on the mediums. So it's going to be fairly high deck, this circuit. 36-degree tarmac temperature, which is fairly cool actually for where we are in the world. And some decently high-speed corners, high-speed, heavy braking zones, all that sort of thing can be really pushing these tyres to their limit. So I think the harder compound drivers are going to soon find themselves with an advantage, and that might be why we're still seeing Andrew Whitehead just pulling away ever so slightly from Matt Daly. And if anything, both Whitehead and Matt Daly are closing up now on Jack Hodson. So Jack Hodson, hopefully he's nursed those tyres and over the next 8 minutes can just manage that gap behind. So he's in with a shout of this race lead. It's his race lead to lose, really. Not to put that pressure on you, Jack, but as I say, it's certainly not signed, sealed and delivered yet. Nothing is certain for now. We've got Andrew Whitehead, we've got Matt Daly. We've also got Will Inglis in the mix there as well. He's had a remarkable recovery given how many offs he's had. He's still there and in the mix of things. so can still put that pressure on as we head into the final few phases of this race. It's going to be shaping up to be a great one here now. And here we go then, as if on cue, on board with Will Inglis, that harder compound tyre, rewarding him, I think, as we head later into this race. Matt Daly's pace seems to have just dropped off ever so slightly on the last lap, a 156.1. Will Inglis in the mid-55s, and is putting that pressure on, still setting personal bests. That hard compound tyre, again, Reeve's going to put his strategist hat on, which often doesn't end well, because who trusts me with their strategy? Well, maybe Ferrari, but either way, I'm maybe thinking, yeah, the harder time might be the one to go for here. And if there is possible evidence for that, here we go. Will Inglis putting that pressure on, heading through turn 12 now. The effective double apex here as we run through the top end of the circuit. Bit of a wide line there for Will Inglis. Let's look at his rear spoiler, why don't we? I'd rather not look at his rear spoiler. Let's see what we can see as we head through turn 15. This usually catches a few drives out because it is so high speed, barreling into it. We see them forced off wide on the track limits, and that is what I think we saw so much of in qualifying. Let's head through that final right-hander then, the final right-hander of the lap, and just look at how close now Will Inglis is as we head on to the start-finish straight. He benefits from a great run and a little bit of slipstream as well. That gives him so much momentum as we head towards the next lap of the race. Will Inglis up into P3, then a great recovery so far for the blue and yellow and white liveried car. Bring into turn 1 then. Where is Matt Daly? Is he on that inside line? Yes, he is. Slate on the brakes. Fantastic stoic move there from Matt Daly, never giving up. Thank you, Andrew, for the quick drive through the 75. It was in pristine condition, that car. It's only ever done like 3 miles, but yep, sure, write it off. Either way, Andrew is back out on track. And I think he knew we were going to see that on screen, so perhaps that's why he did it. But there's still a great battle going on here between Matt Daly and Will Inglis as we head through turn 6 now. Matt Daly still just has the upper hand, but you just get that sense that through the bends now, Will Inglis is just looking that little bit more eager. It's just, I think Matt Daly has so much more confidence, even with less tyre grip. He just has that confidence on the brakes. So there's not much that Will Inglis can do when it comes to certain parts of the track, although you would say, I think, through certain other phases, and down those straights as well when he was behind with the toe. Will Inglis has got the quicker car at the moment. This is a great battle of the drivers then as we head into the final few minutes of this race. Meanwhile, out in front, Jack Hodson does still lead. That lead has certainly shrunk down. Now the lead stands at 3 seconds. Andrew on the hards, Jack on the mediums. He's going to be nursing those mediums at this point, and the time just keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. 5 minutes to go. It's going to be a close one between these two drivers. Let's not forget, though, it's one thing to catch up. It's certainly another thing to overtake. The advantage that you need to get the move done is a very different thing to the advantage that you need to catch up. We're going to have a look at that battle in a moment, but the battle for P3 is even closer. Another crucial battle for the podium is what we like to see. We're going to go on board with Will Inglis as we get back onto that start-finish straight, although the gap, it must be said, a little bit bigger this time around. Matt Daly seems to have control, seems to have the upper hand as we head into the final 5 minutes of this race. Closing down, though, on Jack Hodson is Andrew Whitehead. That hard compound tyre doing him well. Purple through the final sector, so the fuel loads are low. There's still some life in those hards, and he's setting some blistering lap times, is Andrew Whitehead. In fact, that is the fastest lap of the race so far for Andrew Whitehead, a 155.1 there, so that is mighty impressive for the white and red liveried car. Of course, reminiscent of now a bygone era, reminiscent of the Alfa Romeo Sauber Formula 1 livery. What a great shame that we have lost that in Formula 1. Its successors have never had and probably never will quite have the same gravitas, the same elegance out on track. It was great to see, but here we go. Is Andrew Whitehead going to get an elegant move on Jack Hodson here? The door was open. He sees an opportunity. He is able to get side by side. The front axle lines up with the rear axle just about. He's on that diffuser, but he does have to back out of it for now. Will Inglis, meanwhile, is still putting that pressure on Matt Daly. It's half a second. There's just less time between these two drivers out for the lead of the race. A fantastic battle brewing then as we head up towards turn 12. Once again, Andrew Whitehead heading it around the outside, gets a nose out in front, gets the move done. Well, gets a move started at least. I don't know if the move's quite done just yet. Sector 3 is so topsy-turvy. The momentum can swing in any direction, and I think it has now swung in the favour of Andrew Whitehead. Started on pole, tumbled back down to the bottom of the order and worked his way up slightly. That is a brilliant drive, a champion's drive for a championship contender there. Congratulations, Andrew, on that move. As we head back onto the start-finish straight, the battling is certainly not over yet. 3 minutes to go in this race, and we jump on board with Matt Daly. Willingless putting that pressure on. They weave across the start-finish line, but it is not over yet. As we see Willingless gunning for that inside line. This time he's going to try and copy Matt Daly's old tricks on Matt Daly himself, but if there's any driver who knows Matt Daly's tricks, it is Matt Daly. So it's going to be a tough one, as we see late on the brakes once again. How does Matt Daly do it? He just is able to stomp on that brake pedal with so much confidence, knowing that the car will slow down without any lockups. Always judges it perfectly, but still hanging it around the outside is Willingless, and that is confidence, that is bravery from Will there to maintain P3. In fact, last bit back, if anything, and darting towards the other side there is Matt Daly. This is a fantastic battle. I'm sure these two will give each other a bit of a pat in the back in the Discord chat, sorry, the paddock chat, give it its official title, at the end of this race. Brilliant stuff between these two drivers. Heading through turn 6 then, it is Willingless still in the lead. The question is for how long, because I think these two are going to go on until the very end. Good to see as well, and I barely mentioned he was too busy driving through my car. Andrew Rama, good to see him back in the session, so he will be partaking in the reverse grid race, and hopefully with a 2-lap deficit should be classified as well in terms of some points. Meanwhile, Matt Daly running in P4, Willingless running in P3, half a second the margin between them, but Willingless just messes it up ever so slightly, the back end stepping out. He is able to continue on, but loses momentum as a result. I think he ran a little bit wide there, and that could have cost him big time, but he seems to have recovered quite well. So well done to Will for that one. Now, I should also add, another element gets added to this battle in the form of Jack Hodson. Here is Jack Hodson now, 1.5 seconds ahead of these two. Despite their battling, he has been slowly losing time to Willingless and Matt Daly, so we could see another element here. Hopefully I don't see Jack Hodson kicked off the podium, because he thoroughly deserves it, but what a story it would be for Andrew Whitehead, Willingless and Matt Daly to have respectively been in P4, P5 and P6 at the start of the race, to have worked their way back up to the top 3 positions. It would be a remarkable recovery drive for these drivers. Let's have a brief look then at the championship standings. We're not going to have too much of a chance to, because this battling is so close to the edge there. It's fantastic stuff. Matt Daly still leads with a healthy margin, 173 points to his name. Andrew Whitehead 127, Alan Matthews 116, Willingless 99, Andrew Raman 98, so very close running between these two. And then we have Jack Hodson, Paul Millman, Steve Knight and Guy Swarbrick on 86, 74, 36 and 10 respectively. So still some close running in the championship order. It will be a great day out for Andrew Whitehead as he closes up some points on Matt Daly. Also Jack Hodson, he's running in P6 at the moment in this championship. He'll probably stay there. In fact, no, he might jump up. Either way, it's going to be very close, and it'll still be a good day for him. Willingless, be another great day out for Will there, and he might even get just a little bit closer to Alan Matthews, as we see Willingless once again very much under pressure. In fact, Jack Hodson now under pressure from Willingless, rather, as we head into this final couple of laps of the race. Another strong day out for Paul Millman as well, so still some change to be seen in the championship order, but we're going to go jump on board now with Willingless as he tries to find a way past Jack Hodson on this, the last lap of the race. In fact, we just started the penultimate lap of the race, so forgive me for that one there. The timer has hit 0 though, and it is Andrew Whitehead who leads this race by a comfortable 7 seconds now. He is about to start the final lap of the race, so I was slightly premature there. Oh no, big spin. There was an ever so slight bit of contact there on a very unfortunate part of the lap for Willingless and Jack Hodson. That is a terrible shame for both drivers. Jack Hodson is able to get underway, so he's going to continue on in P3 for the time being. Matt Daly's promoted into P2. What a drive for Matt Daly this turns out to be. Strengths the advantage that Andrew Whitehead will gain from this race. That all goes wrong though for Jack Hodson and Willingless. It's a good thing that they weren't caught out just that little bit more. They might have been under pressure from Paul Millman. Either way, they do continue on. Willingless is kicked off the podium after a brilliant race-long drive. Well, the start of the race didn't quite go his way. He recovered immensely, and as unfortunately, it's all come unravelled once again at the very end of the race. At this point, Andrew Whitehead must be quietly confident now, although, as we've just learned, anything can happen. This track is certainly not forgiving at all, so let's hope that it's just a nice cruise to the finish for Andrew Whitehead. Matt Daly, meanwhile, has 7 seconds ahead of Jack Hodson, who has a few seconds ahead of Willing Gliss. So this battle, which had been fizzing up and coming to the boil very quickly, just comes to a quiet denouement, if you will. It all just comes down to what Andrew Whitehead can do behind the wheel, and what he has done so far has been remarkable. It has been a great drive for Andrew. 10 seconds is the advantage over the next car. See him heading through into Sector 3 for one last time in this race. The times, I must say, still saying relatively competitive at 1:55.8, so I'm going to put my strategist hat on. It might be a mistake, but I'm going to say the hards are going to become a bit more popular in the next race. Either way, we head round the final corner for one last time in this race. Started on pole. An unfortunate incident sees him tumble back down to P6, but as ever, he impresses with his skills to work his way back up to the lead of the race, and he cruises home without any real difficulty. There is Andrew Whitehead taking race 1 of victory. Congratulations, Andrew. And then it's a familiar finishing position for Matt Daly on the podium, but it certainly was not a familiar way of getting there. It is P2 for Matt Daly, but his work was cut out for him. And then we have, Willing Gliss having another big issue in the background there, and that will be Jack Hodson rounding out the podium in P3. Still a great drive overall, led for a little while, and will be coming home with some silverware, so I'm sure he's pleased with that one in the end. Willing Gliss just about makes it home to P4 in the end there. What could have been, I think, sums up race 1 for Willing Gliss, but still, I'm sure he'll be fighting for more in race 2. The reverse grid race, that comes up in a few moments, but even sooner than that, it is Paul Millman who will be coming home in P5. That's our top 5 rounded off, and then we'll have Andrew Brammer coming around the corner, or final corner, for one last time in this race to round out the order. Now, unfortunately, that is a terrible donut camera. So, Andrew, for the next race, just bear in mind, I'm sure you got nothing else to think about, but if you go back towards where Matt Daly was, we got some donuts from Matt there. We didn't quite see them from you, unfortunately, there, Andrew. Do we have any from Jack? We did have some from Jack. Unfortunately, I missed them. But there we go. We have some more donuts from Matt Daly to compensate. That brings an end to race 1. We'll catch you in a few minutes, as we get ready for race 2, the reverse grid race. See you shortly. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, back with the action ready for race 2. Here we go, the reverse grid order, as we have a look at my car. It is Andrew Brammer and Paul Millman. Then we have Will Inglis, Jack Hodson, Matt Daly, and Andrew Whitehead, our 6-car reverse grid for the second race. And I'm very much looking forward to this one, given just how exciting race 1 was. We still have Jack Hodson on the mediums, and Andrew Brammer, in fact, so I can't remember, because my memory is apparently a goldfish, if more drivers have opted for that hard. Either way, if they've ignored one advice, probably for the best. Either way, 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away for race 2, the reverse grid race. A very quick start for Andrew Brammer there. Looks like missing out potentially. In fact, no, I think everyone's pretty even in that. So Andrew Brammer finds himself at the back of the order now. So an unfortunate race start for him. We'll see if he ends up in the pits there with that one. Either way, now Will Inglis leads from the start here. He'll be trying to make amends for race 1. P4 was all he could manage it in the end after a couple of unfortunate late race incidents. Not sure if it was a lack of tyre grip that was causing that in the end. Either way, I'm sure he'll be hoping for a little bit more from race 2. A second he leads from Matt Daly. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead is ahead of Paul Millman, and he looks to be a gun from either side, really, is Andrew Whitehead. There we can see Paul Millman, and there we can also see Jack Hodson. So not an entirely comfortable position to be in. I think, though, he's rather setting his sights on just getting ahead of Matt Daly. Running it through the inside line there is Andrew Whitehead. Taking a slightly wider approach is Matt Daly, but they are still very close indeed, and Matt Daly on the defensive here to try and make sure that Andrew Whitehead isn't able to get past, because of course last time Andrew Whitehead was able to get past and clear a margin, he just walked away with the race results in the end. So we jump back up towards Sector 3 already, and it is Will Inglis with a 1.3 second lead, but then it gets very close indeed as we have this battle for the podium. And this is a fairly familiar battle for the podium, actually. It's something that we've saw at one point at the start of race 1, then we saw it midway through race 1, but it wasn't quite for the podium. It was, of course, for the lower scoring positions. So we'll be interested to see how this battle shapes up. Andrew keeping that pressure on now. Matt Daly and Andrew Whitehead on the hard compound tyre, so a change of compound there for Matt, and now we're going to see them head on to that start-finish straight. Matt will be hoping that he won't have that late race drop-off in pace. I didn't know it, as we see him now getting poised for battle with Andrew Whitehead moving over there, and an odd move there for Andrew, deciding, actually, you know what, I'm going to go over to the right. Maybe he was expecting to dummy the dummy almost, as we see a bit of a lock-up there for Matt Daly. Remember when I said we don't really see lock-ups on late on the brakes for Matt Daly? Well, I'm sorry, Matt, that's completely my fault. That is commentator's curse. Although, no, you know what, I'm not going to say the sentence I was about to say. Either way, I'm just going to pause any commentator's curse chat right there and then. Anyway, Andrew Whitehead is in P2 at the moment, 0.4 of a second ahead of Matt Daly. It's good to be back in the comms box, though. It's been a little while away since I've actually even been in the UK, so I'm glad to be back. It's actually my first opportunity to sit back down at my desk since I've been back in the UK, so this is quite nice. I'm enjoying this. 0.3 of a second, make that 0.2 of a second as we head through to turn 8 and turn 9. Having a look at the inside there is Matt Daly. It's Andrew, though, with the purple sector, so keeping the measure of him is Andrew. Of course, Andrew's had the benefit of keeping that leading pace and running that hard tyre. He's got that extra experience on the hard, and of course knows how to really setting a blistering lap without falling foul of any track limits, without pushing it a bit too far, because he's had all that experience in qualifying as well. So Andrew might have the upper hand in this battle, but you can't count Matt Daly out, no matter where within the field he's starting, no matter what's going on in the race. Matt Daly cannot be ignored. It is brilliant stuff that we often see from Matt. And Will Inglis also out in front, I must say, doing an impeccable job on those hard compounded tyres as well. He's setting purple sectors at the moment, and we'll be hoping that perhaps without any lack of damage that he might have had, with a bit more race experience as well, he'll be hoping for a cleaner race and just trying to maintain that leading position. Although on the final part of the lap there, we just saw a slight slip up that caused him to run a little bit wide, and he lost some momentum as a result. There we confirm it in the Sector 3 time as well. He lost out big time through that final sector. Closing in then, Andrew Whitehead and Matt Daly. If they can do that whilst carrying on their battle, that'll be all very impressive indeed. Late on the brakes, though, down the inside goes Matt Daly, but poised and on the defence around the outside is Andrew Whitehead. Now, this is actually an enjoyable little corner complex here for these cars. Formula 1 cars, I think, a bit too wide, and the stakes are just a bit too high with the speed that they carry for decent battling through here. But in these slightly smaller, lighter, slower cars, wide circuit, plenty of opportunities for a bit of battling through the first couple of corners. That's what we've seen so far in the racing this evening, and we're seeing further evidence of that now as Andrew Whitehead, after just about losing the position, is able to claw it back, running down through turn 6 up towards turn 7 in just a moment. Meanwhile, out in front, it is Will Inglis with a 1.5 second lead, so he's expanded it ever so slightly, but what he really needs to do now is jumping on this opportunity that has been gifted by the fact that Andrew Whitehead and Matt Daly are embroiled in the midst of battle here. They are slowing each other down, in effect, with their own fighting. What Will Inglis really needs to do now is just try and push on, push away, and make sure that when this battle does inevitably come to an end, or if it does come to an end, hopefully it doesn't for our sake though, because I'm thoroughly enjoying watching it, but when that battle does come to an end, he's got a decent margin out in front. That was the case with Jack Hodson in race 1. Unfortunately, Jack Hodson did everything that he really could have done. Just think the tyres caught him out at the end. He wasn't quite able to push on as he would have wanted, and we saw eventually that's it, back box, but those lower down the podium closing up in the end. So Will Inglis will be hoping to try and execute that successfully here in race 2. A little bit wide there for Andrew Whitehead. There we got a view of the rear view mirror where we can see the car in yellow benefiting from that slipstream. Andrew Whitehead probably also benefiting from a very small one as well, but Matt Daly really benefiting here as we head down towards turn 1. The pit lane exit, of course, darts to the inside. It does Matt Daly. Where are we going to see them come out now? Running through the first corner. Nice move there for Matt Daly. Has he compromised himself though by opening up the outside of turn 2? No, he hasn't. That switchback it meant he was able to defend the apex quite nicely, and instead it's going to be his left mirror that he needs to watch for Andrew Whitehead now as he head up towards turn 4 in just a second. Still having the outside then, Andrew Whitehead. But as we've seen so far in this race, the outside, if you can keep the grip up, keep the momentum going, keep that higher speed, it can be beneficial to run around the outside sometimes in this race. So we'll see how it shapes up for these two drivers. They're actually closing in on Will Inglis, which is quite impressive, to say the least, given they are thoroughly enjoying their battle at the moment. And Matt Daly posts a personal best on that last lap. The other driver's not quite able to match that feat, but we are still seeing Andrew Whitehead putting all of the pressure on, going potentially just a little bit wide there, running over the rumble strips there, marking the outside of the circuit. Now, these cars do quite a good job of smoothing that out, really. It looks probably quite comfortable there, but I can tell you, if this was a real-life car, or even if you're in the cockpit, in the VR sim, or even on the sim rig, partaking in this race, it doesn't feel quite that comfortable. It feels a little bit scary sometimes based on some of the curbs, because they are quite harsh, quite severe. You're going quite fast as well. It can upset the car. Either way, Andrew Whitehead having a look around the outside. Nothing he can do just yet. He's going to have to back off for now and try and get it done somewhere else. Matt Daly knows exactly what his opponent is trying to do. It's up to Andrew to try and confuse him and try something different that perhaps Matt isn't expecting, although Matt is expecting pretty much everything. He's so experienced, so skilled in his racing career. We're going to go side by side. Some great momentum, though, to the favour of Andrew Whitehead. Gets a nose out in front ever so slightly, although I think, no, we're going to be side by side, because at the top end, Matt Daly just has the upper hand. The brake discs glow red hot then as we try and get these cars derated from one of the fastest speeds we achieve on the calendar here in the AROC Racing Leagues to not a slow corner, but a pretty slow corner. I think Monza probably takes more out of the brakes, to be honest, because you're slowing right down to the first chicane there, but still a very tough circuit on all of the wearable items on the car. Probably engines included as well if we were simulating that, but let's not add that bit of frustration into the mix, shall we not? As we head up through turn 6 in just a moment, Matt Daly is keeping the measure of Andrew Whitehead. It might not seem cool, calm and stable, but I'm sure he's feeling pretty happy that he knows what his opponent's going to do at this point. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead is also, I'm probably sure, quite enjoying pushing Matt Daly. Of course, Andrew took some time out over the past few seasons. We are so happy that he's back, and he doesn't seem to be missing any of his tricks, does he? He's back up to pace, and he's certainly putting on a show for us. So very enjoyable indeed. 2 seconds off the lead of this race. Will has seems to have found that little bit of edge once again. He's not pulling away, but he's not losing time to the two other drivers on the podium, which is perhaps the most important thing for his race at this point. Maybe he can find something up his sleeve later on if he just controls this race now. That's all he really needs to do. This could be him doing that. He could be backing off ever so slightly, just trying to make sure the tyres are going to be really happy towards the end. He's perhaps a little bit scared of that after race 1. And if he can make sure he's got plenty of grip left in the end, plenty more for the car to give, he can control the race now and make sure he maintains at least this delta late on. As we see the 3 drivers, though, push out just a little bit wide at the final part of the lap. We head back onto that start-finish straight, and the gap now stands at just under 1 second. Willing Bliss has a very unfortunate task here, punching a hole through the air for the 2 cars behind. That gives Matt Daly a slipstream. It gives Andrew Whitehead a double slipstream here as we head up into that first corner. And we see, having a look around the outside, Andrew Whitehead. It's going to be the outside once again, because as we head through turn 3, Matt Daly might be trying to defend that inside liner. No, actually, he's going to open the door up to Andrew Whitehead. Such great defense here from Matt Daly. Looks very calm in doing so, but he's positioning that car absolutely perfect. He's making such a small car as wide as humanly possible on such a wide circuit as well. That is no mean feat, but Matt Daly is managing to pull it off. As we see, they're going to be side by side once again. Perhaps not quite side by side just yet, though. The inside is on offer to Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead says thank you very much, but he's going to lose out on the exit there, because I think Matt Daly has absolutely nailed now. Just taking almost an IndyCar line through so many of these corners. Seems to be benefiting him in terms of keeping the momentum up. It might be helping the tyres as well, and he has so far not had to worry about Andrew Whitehead getting past just yet. Let's have a quick look while we can then at the championship standings, and we see it's Matt Daly still in the lead, of course, 191 points to his name. Andrew Whitehead closing ever so slightly after race 1 with 157. Alan Matthews, 116. He had a great start to the season, missed a couple of rounds, so hopefully we see him back sooner rather than later. Then we have Willing Bliss, P4, 111 points to his name, so closing up on Alan Matthews. Then also closing up on those 2, Andrew Bammer and Jack Hodson, 106 and 101 points respectively. Paul Millman, P7 with 84, and then no change for Steve Knight and Guy Swarbrick, 36 and 10 for those 2 drivers. So, as ever, the championship still looking fairly hot. Certainly nothing settled yet. 40 points separate Matt Daly and Andrew Whitehead. By no means insurmountable, because Andrew Whitehead has been on a fairly good run over the past few rounds. Meanwhile, in this race at least, context of this race, Andrew dropping back ever so slightly from Matt Daly now. Maybe he's thinking, you know what, preserve the tyres, we'll have another go later on. Or perhaps he's exercised all that he can do in this race, and Matt Daly has just got that upper edge. We'll see what it turns out to be as we head into the second half of this race, which we are about to now. But perhaps more worryingly, if you're Willing Bliss, Matt Daly has not eased off on closing up to Willing Bliss. It was 1 second, it was 9/10, it's now about 1.1 seconds, but still very close indeed. It was a great lap though last time out for Willing Bliss, which has helped him in this battle. But now within 1 second is Matt Daly, not even on the straight yet. So we'll get onto that straight, and we're going to have a bit of a slipstream effect. I think we could be seeing Matt Daly closing up to Willing Bliss just that little bit more, and potentially the momentum in this battle, it's not going to be a battle for P2, it might now be a battle for P1. And then, unfortunately, we do have confirmation of a small incident for Jack Hodson. He tumbles down to P5, but is able to carry on. It was a great drive out for Jack Hodson in race 1. Haven't seen too much of him here in race 2, so it's going to be more about just picking up some points, bringing the car home. He might have a battle with Andrew Brammer to contend with in a few laps, depending on what the pace is looking like. So we'll report on that if we do see anything of the sort. Now, Matt Daly, 1 second down on Willing Bliss at the moment. We are 6 laps into this race. It's a fairly long lap here, so we don't have the utmost in terms of laps. I reckon we're going to get at least another 6 more in, though, as we come towards the end of the lap once again. Can't tell how many times I can say the word lap in a couple of sentences. Just noticed that as an attempt at the Doha skyline there. Not sure if it's a great one, but that's certainly a great run for Andrew Whitehead. We haven't seen that for a little while, but a great bit of momentum. Is Matt Daly going to concede the corner? No, of course he's not. What were you expecting? Late on the brakes, down the inside. Not that we've ever seen Matt Daly do that before. No, not at all. And we see Matt Daly back up into P2. 1 second separates Willing Bliss and Matt Daly. But Matt Daly and Andrew Whitehead separated by just a couple of car, well, just less than a car width, really, if anything, as they go side by side, heading up through turn 4 here. Now it's going to be Whitehead on the inside of the yellow liveried car. These two have got so comfortable with lapping each other now. And let's not forget, the time absolutely flies by. We're in the midst of a battle like this, and it is so easy to take it for granted that for us, we've just been watching a fun battle on screen. But for these drivers in the cockpit, they have been nailing every braking zone, predicting exactly what their opponent's going to do without making contact, while staying within track limits, while thinking about the gears that they need to be jumping into, while keeping control of a race car. That is an almighty feat. They've been doing it for about 15 minutes now, and I think they could be doing it for another 10. They have not put a proper foot wrong at any point in this battle, these two drivers, so congratulations to both of them for that. Hopefully we get some more of it as we head into the final stages of this race. Matt Daly has the inside here, but as I think Andrew Whitehead has learned, sometimes the outside is where you want to be on this lap. So Matt Daly's probably going to be quite keen to try and get that back if possible, although Andrew seems to have the upper hand at this point. He's got a car length ahead, something we've not really seen so far in this battle. We haven't seen a change. Is there going to be contact there? They got very close indeed. They do avoid it though. Very skilled racers, these two. There was a slight bit of contact, in fact. 10 kilometers an hour though, so just a bit of rubbing is racing there. Training of paint, nothing really to worry about. There's no damage recorded as a result of that at all. Andrew Whitehead now, he led at various parts of that lap. He doesn't lead at the moment, but he has the slipstream, but perhaps that helped him out as he gets the nose out in front. But I don't know, we might see it again, folks. Down the inside here, what can Matt Daly do? He gets the nose out in front, and would you believe it, he gets the car out in front as well. Although I believe the inside of turn 3 might be open up to Andrew Whitehead here. Not quite, because it's Matt Daly able to defend once again. Now these two are really getting embroiled in this battle now. They are enjoying it thoroughly, as am I. But what it is now meaning is that they are getting so elbows out. They're not being unfair to each other at all. But Willing Bliss starting to break away now. 2 seconds when it was only 1 just a couple of laps ago. This is great stuff from our 2 championship leaders, our championship contenders are battling it out. This is not just a battle for P2 in this race. This is not just a test to see who can come home with the 2nd spot on the podium. This is more so a test of who's going to bring it home in the terms of the championship. And there is Andrew Whitehead with a very small issue there, but a big issue in terms of this dynamic of this battle here. The back end just snaps out on him. This is a short wheelbase car, of course. If he's overheated a tyre, if he's starting to show signs of tyre degradation, if he pushes that back axle just a little bit too much, it's going to treat him very unkindly indeed. And I think that's what we've just seen there. The car just relenting, just not quite being able to do what he's asking of it, perhaps under braking or maybe even at a stab of the throttle. Either way, Andrew Whitehead now, unfortunately, looks to have relented in this battle. What a great battle it was. For a moment, you could have easily said it was Andrews for the taking. It was going to be P2, but for now, perhaps concerningly for Willing Bliss, Matt Daly might just be beginning to focus a little bit more on the car out in front than what he has been. He might be looking just a little bit more in front now instead of looking in his mirrors. Don't count Andrew Whitehead out, of course. Now he's been able to cool off and maybe back out from battle a little bit. He might find a bit of a rhythm, might be able to push on and close back up to Matt Daly. So we'll see if that is the case, if he's able to post some fast laps in just a second. But for now, Matt Daly can ease off a little, well, not ease off, but can relax and perhaps set his sights on closing up to Willing Bliss. Willing Bliss is probably a little bit terrified to learn that Andrew Whitehead is no longer keeping Matt Daly occupied, but we'll see how it shapes for these drivers. Let's have another quick look, though, at our other competitors in this race, because they are enjoying their own little battle as well. Andrew Brammer against Jack Hodson. I did mention earlier, Jack Hodson had those issues, and we might be seeing Jack Hodson beginning to close up, and we certainly have confirmation of that now as we head up through turn 3. Jack Hodson beginning to put that pressure on. In terms of the pace at the moment, 157.1 for Jack Hodson, 158.6 for Andrew Brammer. So 1.5 seconds advantage on the last lap goes to Jack Hodson. In terms of their best lap, the delta is slightly larger than that. A bit of an off there for Andrew Brammer, though, sees an end to this battle. An unfortunate incident. I do think rear tyre degradation is proving to be a challenge for a couple of drivers here, as we are seeing with Andrew Brammer, as we saw with Andrew Whitehead as well, and I saw a couple of times as well with Willing Bliss in the previous race, and the tyres are nice and hot. The grip is not plentiful, and Andrew Brammer just needs to kind of calmly and comfortably just bring the car back up to speed, get those tyres back into a comfortable window. It is possible, it just might cost him P5 in this race here, as Paul Millman, he's had nothing really to talk about over the past couple of laps, but through just keeping the car out on track. Bit of a race of attrition here for Paul. He might now find himself in with a shout, because he's on that hard tyre, of getting past Andrew Brammer and working his way back up into the top 5. We'll see if he's able to do that in a few moments. Jack Hudson, I'm sure, though, quite pleased with his run back to P4. He had issues in race 2, of course, just like he did in race 1. Unfortunately for him in race 1, it was from the lead of the race, tumbling his way down, but he has been working his way back up into P4 here for Jack Hudson. So a decent number of points on offer for Jack from this race weekend. Matt Daly, meanwhile, still trying to close up to Will Inglis. 1.1 seconds is the margin. In terms of that last lap, Will Inglis at 155.6. In terms of Matt Daly, at 155.5. And Andrew Whitehead, a 155.3. So very close indeed in terms of the pace between our top 3 in this race. Matt Daly has a purple sector 2. Andrew Whitehead, a personal best sector 2. And that was on the last lap, of course. As we start this next lap, it's 2 personal bests for Will Inglis and Matt Daly. But it's a big issue there for Andrew Whitehead. He just set a purple sector 1. He was pushing on to try and close up that gap to Matt Daly. But the back end steps out on Andrew Whitehead. He's going to be able to get back underway without any pressure because the drivers behind are a little bit away. But unfortunately for Andrew Whitehead, it's a similar boat to Andrew Brammer, I think. Just try and bring the car home comfortably now at this point. The rear tyres are a bit shot by the looks of things, maybe a bit overheated. Just needs to try and cruise the car home now. This, if before, didn't spell disaster for Will Inglis, this must really put the pressure on now, because Matt Daly has just posted a purple sector. He's looking to be his best lap of the race so far. In fact, this could be the fastest lap of the race so far as the fuel load begins to get lighter. Of course, cars are carrying a lot of fuel at this circuit because so much of it is wide open throttle. And the tyres have still got potentially a bit of life left in them. The fuel load will make a big difference here at Losail. And we see the really fast lap start to tumble in now. 155, in fact 154.9 predicted for Matt Daly as the gap stands within a second now, closing up in that slipstream as well. It's a 154.9 on the last lap for Matt Daly and 155.3 for Will Inglis. So closing up as we see Will Inglis breaking the toe, breaking the slipstream by weaving down the straights. Do too much of it and you'll cost yourself speed, but do just the right amount, you'll cost your opponent speed as well. So I think that's just what he's trying to do there as we enter the final 3 minutes of this race. Now stands at 0.6 of a second at 2.5 minutes to go on the clock. Of course, a lap on top of that, though, as we see both drivers using all of the track limits and then some as they try to push on and see how this battle ends up. Personal best there for Will Inglis, though. Could it be the case that Matt Daly might have used the last of his tyres to try and post that fast lap? I'm not quite sure if that is the case. Matt was rather lumbered with the medium tyre towards the end of race 1. But it seems to be a bit released now using the hard tyre, the same tyre compound as Will Inglis as we head towards the final corner here. And it's back on to the start-finish straight. And it's a big issue for Will Inglis there. What a shame. Driving so well so far into this race. One small error, one millisecond too early on the throttle, trying to carry just a bit too much speed. He ends up over the curbs on the outside of the final corner. He's able to get back underway. He might be vulnerable to Andrew Whitehead here now as well, though, because Andrew's still in the midst here. But Matt Daly has now been gifted a 9-second lead in this race. That is not how we wanted this race to end, I am sure. He'll be kicking himself for that one very small error, just under pressure from Matt Daly there. And Will Inglis is able to continue on in P2, but might he now be worried about Andrew Whitehead behind? Andrew seems to be back in a bit of a rhythm once again, matching Matt Daly in terms of pace. And of course, his tyres will be in a nice, comfortable window, whereas Will already having issues heading in to the final corner, clearly on that last lap, has exacerbated those with that spin. Those tyres will be nice and toasty at this point, so he's now going to ease off. He's now going to gently bring the car back into a happy window, and he's got to do that with Andrew Whitehead potentially bearing down on him. Now, there's a 5-second gap between the two, so he should be able to manage that, but still not the way our race leader wanted this race to end, I am sure. He's led this race for so long, and we've had 2 races this evening where our comfortable race leaders have found themselves at the very end just not being quite able to bring it home. Unfortunately, it just goes to show anything can happen in these races. And for Matt Daly, I'm sure it's happy days, although after the immense battling he's enjoyed this race, I'm not sure it's the way that he would have wanted things to have ended. We've certainly enjoyed watching it, though. Been some fantastic action this evening. This track may not be to everyone's taste, that is for sure, but I would have to say I think it's delivered here this evening. I'm sure there'll be some frustration as it's not going to be a driver favourite, I am sure, but it's made for some great racing action. As the driver, Matt Daly, is coming towards the penultimate lap of this race. He will have 1 lap to go, and it should just be a bit of a cruise home victory lap for him, really. He doesn't need to push the boat out all that much. He's got a 10-second margin. It's just a case of trying to bring the car home. There is a bit of a battle brewing up, though, between Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer. 158.8 on the last lap for Andrew, a 158.8 for Paul Millman. So that is nice and consistent, isn't it, between our 2 drivers battling over P5 here as we head up towards turn 12. And in terms of their best lap, Andrew Brammer seems to have ever so slightly have the upper hand, but most importantly, perhaps at this phase of the race, Paul Millman on the hard compound tyre. He's going to have a bit more to push on with these tyres, can perhaps force an error from Andrew Brammer, and is going to be less susceptible to them, hopefully, in his own car. At least hopefully for his sake. I'm sure Andrew Brammer would much rather that Paul Millman wasn't quite able to find a way past. The back end looking very lively in Andrew Brammer's car there. He was able to keep it at bay, though. We've seen the final corner catching a few drivers out this evening, and these who don't want to be joining that club for another couple of times this evening as we head on to the final lap for these drivers as well. Matt Daly, our race leader, is currently heading into the final sector as well. Another brilliant race this evening, it must be said. As I was saying then, I think we've enjoyed some great racing overall this evening, even with a relatively small grid on a relatively big circuit. Matt Daly pushing then. Although he doesn't need to push that much, it is Paul Millman who's certainly pushing Andrew Brammer as he tries to find a way past. Well, I'm very intrigued to see if they will get it done on the last lap. We've seen a few last lap shenanigans in our time, a few late race shenanigans, certainly in this race, in fact in the previous race as well, but we are going to jump on board with Matt Daly. He had a pretty much, or at least half race long battle with Andrew Whitehead and was brewing up for another one with Will Inglis. It wasn't to be in the end, but it has been a great drive for Matt Daly as he comes across the line to take race 2 victory. I'm sure that's what he wanted from race 1, and a wise switch to the hard tyres. You are welcome for the wisdom there on that one. Matt Daly sees Matt Daly come home at P1. P2 in the end for Will Inglis. It could have been more, but it certainly could have been less with that late race incident as well. So it's P2 for Will Inglis, and rounding out the podium after a brilliant battle with Matt Daly, it is Andrew Whitehead. Victory donuts are on display for Matt Daly. Thoroughly deserved victory donuts as well. Matt Daly's our only victory donut that we can see so far this evening. So yeah, if we move towards Matt, we might see a couple more victory donuters, but either way, it's going to be Jack Hodgson coming across the line next, P4. Some more points on the board for Jack. I'm sure he'll be pleased with that one. That helps him in his championship standings there, as we see the battle not quite hotting up between these 2 drivers yet. There we go. We can see Andrew in the view now as well. Rear tyres punctured as we see Andrew Brammer heads through the final corner. A late race collision there for Paul Millman. What a shame that the race ends in that way for him, but it's Andrew Brammer who comes across the line to take P5, and Paul Millman will be coming home P6 in the end there as well. So that is our grid coming across the line as we enjoy some victory donuts with a few more competitors. And now then Jack Hodgson joins in. I think Andrew Brammer's joining in as well. We just can't see him. And that brings an end to this evening's very exciting racing indeed. I hope you've enjoyed as much. Watching. No, clearly I'm too tired and it's time to bring the stream to an end. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating. I'll catch you next week for some touring car action. We will stream some touring car action. I promise. I'm trying. Anyway, I'll see you very shortly. Thank